No, this is not the ship I went cruising on. The ship I sailed on was called the Royal Clipper. I saw a large picture of the Royal Clipper on the Star Clipper stand at an exhibition and checked its itinerary for 2015. When I saw it was going on an Atlantic crossing on my 80th birthday, I booked there and then. Mr. Mikael Kraft from Sweden is the owner of Star Clippers and was inspired by the Prussian, built in 1902. It was the largest and the only 5-masted full rigger ever built, until Mr. Kraft decided to build another, and the Royal Clipper was launched in the year 2000. She has a sail area of 56,000 square feet, is 439 foot long, and is of 5,000 tons displacement. I boarded the ship in Lisbon and made my way down beautifully furnished corridors to my cabin, number 253. This was going to be home for the next 16 days. A lovely picture of a sailing ship over the bed. 2 portholes. A television and a DVD player. A nice little seat in the corner. A small chest of drawers, complete with mirrors and lights. A wardrobe, plenty of mirrors. And a little writing desk. And then leading off, a very, very smart shower, toilet and wash basin. It's complete with a hairdryer, plenty of electrical sockets and a clothesline. After unpacking and then having dinner, I turned in. We were due to sail that night. When I awoke the next morning, we were at sea. This is the first time I'd been at sea since 1968, when I left my last P&O ship. Very gentle motion. Nothing to worry about. Very comfortable roll. I couldn't contain my enthusiasm and looked out of the porthole, and there was the Atlantic Ocean. After breakfast I went up on deck, and on a beautiful morning the full glory of the 5 masts of the Royal Clipper were there in front of me, stretching right up to the sky. We were on engines only for this short trip. The tallest of these masts is 197 feet above the deck. The ship is registered in Malta and therefore flies the Maltese flag. The ship's wheel is situated forward just behind the bridge, but being on autopilot there's no need for anyone to stand there. We were on our way to call the following day at our next port of call, a port that will be forever associated with a film. It would also be my birthday. I awoke the next day, an octogenarian. The ship's daily news sheet did not miss a trick, and Saturday, November the 7th, we arrived in Casablanca, and there was the picture: Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. I went up on deck and took a good view of Casablanca with its harbour and ships, including a couple of naval ships in the background. As the crew struggled to get the gangway down, it was time to go ashore and have a look around on the 7th of November in Casablanca. Once on the quayside, one could appreciate the beauty of the Royal Clipper with its towering masts and its graceful clipper stern. I set off with Miriam and Jim to go into the old centre, where we hoped to find a certain Rick's Cafe. There was the entrance to the old town, and there was Rick's Cafe, recently set up to commemorate the great film. A brass plaque on the wall gives us the opening hours, and also the caption, "The legend continues." Rick's Cafe is in fact a very smart and impressive restaurant, done in typical Moroccan style, with an upstairs area and a lovely glass dome window allowing the sunlight to give everywhere a soft glow. It was all designed in the style of the film set, with music of that period. The service was excellent and friendly, and the menu had a wide choice of European and Moroccan foods to choose from. It had an impressive bar and, of course, a piano. But enough nostalgia. We came here for lunch, and here I am with Miriam and Jim from the United States, enjoying a very, very pleasant birthday lunch. The restaurant was equally attractive on the top floor as below, and it also had some rather interesting genuine Moroccan furniture. When we left Rick's Cafe, we were all given a rather nice coloured photograph of the outside of the cafe taken at night time.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
And then it was back to the Royal Clipper and another chance to admire her graceful lines. It was as if the past had returned, bringing to life what had previously been seen only in old pictures. We left Casablanca that evening, and this time we were under sail. There were photographs of the ship's captain and his officers conveniently positioned for all to see, and we got to know them all as the trip went on. But this is what most of us had come for, to be on a sailing ship and to see those sails stretching upwards to the very top of the mast. With the engines now shut down, we were really sailing. The short trip to the Canary Islands gave me a chance to film the interior of the Royal Clipper. This is the central area, and a series of attractive murals adorn the curved bulkheads. I see no ships. The rippling light effect is caused by the sun shining on the surface of the main swimming pool, which has a glass base, allowing light to illuminate the central atrium area, which extends to the lower deck where the dining room is situated. You can see here the stairs leading down from the upper lounge area, past the central area, and on down to the dining room, where a buffet table is laid out at breakfast and lunch times. Moving up to the lounge, the underside of the swimming pool comes into view. And when passing through the lounge or sitting in the lounge, it's rather eerie to see the portholes and occasionally somebody swimming. No, I guess he or she is not going to put in an appearance. This gently curving stairway leads one down to the dining room itself. The crew are busily doing some hoovering, as you can probably hear at the moment, as there's no one around, keeping the place absolutely spotless as always. And here is the dining room. It is an absolutely beautiful area of the ship. Wonderful oak, woodwork, lighting. Everything about it has class. Meal times were the highlight of the day. Wonderful breakfast spreads, everything you could possibly imagine, followed by a similar spread for lunch, and then waiter service in the evening for dinner. Star Clippers naturally had its own chinaware. Moving up to the lounge, we come to one of the most attractive parts of the ship. Mandy at rest. Naturally, it has its own bar and also a grand piano. Moving down again from the lounge level, through the central area and down to the dining room, where the crew are busily tidying up and preparing for lunch. Returning to the lounge, every table has its own very attractive little menu for cocktails. Sex on the beach looked rather interesting. Here we see the very sophisticated bar with its choice of exotic wines, or if you prefer, tea or coffee, which is of course all three. If you are one of these very energetic people who like to burn off calories and work themselves up into a lather of perspiration, then you can go down to the gym, where there are all sorts of fiendish pieces of apparatus. No, this isn't the washing machine. It is in fact the Atlantic. And when you finish doing all that nasty sort of exercise, you can relax here and recover. If you fancy a bit of peace and quiet and a good read, the library's the place to go to. Two heavy glass doors shield the library from the noise outside. Inside, it is quite delightful. Very quiet, very comfortable, an absolute oasis of silence, peace and solitude. It even has a fire. Above the fireplace is a beautiful portrait of Her Majesty Queen Sylvia of Sweden. She is the godmother of the Royal Clipper. There's a wealth of reading matter here, and one book caught my eye and I actually took it out and had a good read. Alex Ferguson's book. You can catch up on world news just here on this little table, prepared daily by the Purser's Office. To cater for all nationalities travelling on the Royal Clipper, there are books in English, German, French, Swedish and even Russian. The soundproofing in the library is really marvellous, and you will notice the difference the moment you go through the glass doors. Close by you can pick up details of any excursions and sit and wait if you have to for the cruise director. Going up a level, we come to the forward lounge. This extends the full width of the ship and can seat quite a number of people. Some interesting talks are given here by members of staff and also passengers who have experiences they would like to pass on. As in the library, the design of the windows adds a touch of elegance and class to this room. The long table with its backcloth of beautiful wooden panelling is useful for speakers to put their notes on, or even at a certain function, glasses of champagne. In keeping with the restful ambience of the lounge, there are many maritime paintings around the bulkheads. To add a further nautical touch, there are one or two sea chests. This particular one was Captain Blackbeard Dowling's treasure chest. And then of course you can always visit the shop. And just off the shop is the purser's office. And there is Marina Ryabova, the purser, beavering away. Marina was a delightful young lady who came from the Ukraine. She was in charge of all our passports and travel documents, so she was a very important person. The shop had a wide range of shirts and shorts and baseball caps, etc. There are 3 bars on the ship, the lounge bar and the tropical bar, conveniently signposted with another important notice, found by going up these beautifully illuminated stairs. The tropical bar extends to the complete width of the ship, and as this is an open deck, you can see the ocean on either side of you. The barmen here are always busy, especially at night time, when most of the passengers assemble here for an evening drink before dinner, and even afterwards. And then the sundeck bar, which is right on the top deck of the ship and open to the elements. This could not be better. A beautiful blue sky, a calm sea, a nice gentle breeze, and the rigging and the sails all working very gently to propel the ship along at about 5 knots. The 2 big vents there are the exhausts from the kitchen. This is a view from forward looking aft, the sails gently bulging as the wind catches them. The sails and the masts seem to go on forever, right up into the sky, looking absolutely fantastic. The wheel is lashed down as the ship is being steered on autopilot from inside the bridge. And there is the bowsprit. You can't get much more forward than this. As we cruise gently along at about 5 knots over a very calm sea. After seeing nothing but the Atlantic Ocean for 3 days, to see the Canary Islands in the distance was quite exciting. These islands came up from the bottom of the sea as volcanoes erupted, spewing out their black volcanic dust and rocks to form the islands as we know them today. As per usual, the cruise ships are there in abundance. And so it was nice to see this old-timer, a steamship of years gone by, which is now a museum, sitting quietly by the harbour. It was nearly lunchtime when we arrived in Tenerife, so it was down to the dining room for a quick lunch as I was going on a tour of the island by coach, which included a visit to a winery, which was looked forward to by all. Good, thank you. Our coach's first stop was high up on a hillside at a viewpoint overlooking Tenerife. In the distance, a volcano rests quietly and shows no sign of activity, we were told. The islands are rich in tropical plants. Our guide was also rich on food.
Slide of goat cheese, we fried it, we put some coriander sauce on top of it, red hot chili pepper. Okay, here in the Canary Isles.
The guide knew his stuff, and we stood around patiently listening to his talks on some of the wonderful buildings that still exist that have come down to us from early days. The tour had been described as stitches and wine, and this was the reason why, because this building, believe it or not, was built in 1632 and houses a wonderful collection of needlework and lacework, a speciality of days gone by. A nice touch was at the entrance to every room were figures dressed in traditional costumes. The building is still in exceptionally good repair due to the climate, and the little bar in the courtyard is well stocked with local wine. Apparently the woodwork has never been treated, and it is just as when built. On the other side of the street was another house which also had a number of figures wearing traditional costumes. These two had some rather natty footwear. It really had been a most interesting visit to these marvellous old houses. And then it was on to the Monsieur Winery. An attractive young lady gave us a brief history of the place, and then we went inside to see some extraordinary barrels of wine that had been there for many, many, many years.
Yes. You can take pictures if you want. And old barrels, and we still seal them with the banana. This is the banana leaf.
They seal the bungs in the barrel with banana skins. And then it was follow the leader down into the depths of the winery. Here were a range of stainless steel tanks, all to do with the modern methods of making wine. We followed the leader through lots of dark tunnels where there were more barrels of wine quietly fermenting away, aging, to give the wine its distinctive flavour. You could buy a bottle or two down here, as there was a little shop which had an interesting advert. They certainly had the right idea in Tenerife. We made our way back to the surface past an old wooden wine cask in readiness to do some of the important work of wine tasting. We sat around in the late afternoon sunshine and all agreed the white wine was superb. And then it was back to the Royal Clipper. By now dusk had set in, and the Royal Clipper had all her lights on the yards, the masts, and other locations, all combining to give a rather magical appearance. Should any low-flying aircraft be about, there's a red light on the very top of the mast to deter them. As coaches brought other visitors back to their ships, it was time to make our way to the gangway and rejoin the Royal Clipper, ready for the evening's departure. After an interesting day, a visit to the bar seemed a good idea. We left Tenerife late in the evening. This was the last landmass we would see for 10 days. We were on our way and about to cross the Atlantic. This haunting music was always played by the ship when leaving port. Once we passed the tip of the land, there would be nothing out there but ocean. It had been a very busy day, and with the ship sailing away music still going on, it was time for bed.